All right. Hello, and welcome to the Teaching with Primary Sources for STEAM in Early Childhood. My name is Colleen Brown, and I served as the team lead for a group of graduate students from Rockford University. So we worked on this project collaboratively this whole semester. So we're going to go around and introduce ourselves briefly, just to let you know who we are. But we are a group of all pre-service teachers who are graduate students. So as I said, my name is Colleen, and I came to Rockford University by way of the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, where I studied dance. So I bring a little bit of the art side of the STEAM. And Ashley, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Ashley Brickley, and I'm a graduate student here at RU in early childhood. And my undergrad is from Columbia College Chicago, where I studied art and specifically photography.
Thanks, Ash. Can we have Alyssa next?
Hi, my name is Alyssa Ferrucci. I'm a grad student here at Rockford University. I got my undergrad from Northern Illinois University in Child Development.
Thanks, Alyssa. Carla?
Hi, I'm Carla Mayer, and I have an undergrad in sociology with a minor in psychology from Columbia College in Missouri. And as I was finishing up my undergrad, I kind of developed a passion for the sociology involved in school. So now I am a grad student with RU, getting an early childhood education degree.
Thanks, Carla. And Betsy?
Hi there. I got my undergrad at Judson University in 2015 in Human Services. And now I am in my last year of the grad program at Rockford University in early childhood education.
Thanks, Betsy. And Morgan.
Hi, I am actually from Rockford University. I got my undergrad there for English and art. I found my passion for teaching through substituting this last year and decided to join the early childhood team this semester.
Great. Thanks, Morgan. All right, so that's a little bit about who we are. So as you can tell, all of us are in the early childhood education department. And we were challenged as a part of a grant program to work on with the Teaching with Primary Sources program, which is an initiative from the Library of Congress to integrate primary sources more into the K-12 space. And then the class that we're all in right now is a STEM or STEAM methods course. So our professor came to us and asked us, you know, people don't really very often use primary sources for teaching STEAM in early childhood, but we really think these things complement one another. We think they can be developmentally appropriate. So today we're going to tell you a little bit about why we think it's a good thing to do, what we did, how we did it, and then some tips and tricks on how you can do it too. So our first presenter today is going to be Alyssa, and she's going to just walk us through the project and give us an overview.
Thank you, Colleen. So just some background and overview on our project. So STEM or STEAM is not very common in early childhood. Many educators are unsure where to start due to a lack of clear standards. We put together this project for early childhood educators to incorporate STEAM into their classroom. So there are a series of 10 lessons, including 1 introduction lesson and 3 lessons for each invention or improvement. The project is mostly inquiry-based and hands-on. It's mainly science and engineering-based and some art to tie it all together. So we put together a series of lessons that centered around the use of STEAM and science history. So the first section was on Alexander Graham Bell. He did the invention of the telephone. So an overview of that section, the first lesson would include an interactive read aloud, and then an introduction to Jaden. And then they would do an introduction to the primary sources with a station activity. And then the second lesson in that section is a collaborative project with their peers. And then the students are able to design a telephone with the materials given. And then the last lesson of that section, the students can test out their inventions and record the data. And then they will complete an exit ticket where they will reflect on the success or failure of their inventions and how the primary sources influenced their decision making. So the next section is the Wright brothers, the invention of the airplane. The first lesson in that section is an interactive read aloud as well, and then introduction to primary sources. And then the students draw their own design for a glider. The second lesson in that section is partner collaboration in order to find a single design. Then the students are able to measure out and build their invention with the given materials. And then they reflect on their new design together. And the last lesson in that section, the students are able to test out their invention with another group. And then they record the results of the test flight. And lastly, they will analyze the data and reflect on their design choices on how to better improve for next time. And then the last section is the New Deal and the Triborough Bridge and the invention of the Triborough Bridge. So the first lesson in that section, they introduce the primary sources and then introduce a problem with no solution. And the students begin an outline or a sketch for an invention of a bridge. The second lesson in that section, the students review the concepts before building, and then they're able to work in pairs to combine their designs. And then the students begin building a bridge that can hold 100 pennies. And the last lesson in that section, the pairs can test out their inventions, and then they will record their data and reflect on why it did or did not hold 100 pennies. And lastly, they will develop a new plan to correct the design flaws in the future.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. And okay, so our next presenter is going to be Carla, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about the STEAM history detectives. I'm sorry, it's not Carla, it's Ashley. I apologize. All right, so it's going to be Ashley talking about the STEAM history detectives and who they are.
Thanks, Colleen. So the first big problem that we had was making sure that primary sources were developmentally appropriate for young children. Primary sources can sort of be, let's be honest, be a little bit dry and could be considered boring and maybe hard for young children to access. So we decided to create characters for them to be able to use as entry points to the information. The idea was that there would be 3 history detectives and they would travel back in time, and when they were back in time, they would find a primary source and bring it back for the students to study and learn from. So we included 3 history detectives for our unit. Names are Jaden, Amelia, and Riley. For each separate lesson, there's a time traveling detective that introduces the invention or improvement to the children. It takes the children back in time to explore the primary source. And each detective has a certain trait that pertains to the invention or improvement. It is a real world personification that allows the children to understand the topic better and acts as an anchor for the information. We worked with an illustrator that we found on Fiverr. Our first detective is named Jaden. He's a history detective for Alexander Graham Bell and the invention of the telephone. His superpower is communication. And you can see by the illustration, it really just gives the kids a little bit of more information about the detective. Jaden's really into communication and computers and coding. The next detective we have, her name is Amelia, and she's the history detective for the Wright brothers and the invention of the airplane and glider. And her superpower is innovation, which goes very well hand in hand with the Wright brothers because they were huge innovators of their time. And you can see by her illustration that she's really into aeronautics. And there's a couple of Easter eggs in there. On her hat is a bicycle, and that's a nod to the Wright brothers and their original business of building bikes. And her name is Amelia, which is obviously a nod to Amelia Earhart. And our last detective is named Riley. Riley is the history detective for the innovation of the New Deal and Triborough Bridge. Her superpower is problem solving, which goes hand in hand with the fact that she is into engineering. And you can see that she's into engineering. There's a few engineering, what's the word I'm looking for? Formulas, sorry, excuse me. Formulas, and she's got plans and stuff. So each of them are unique and different, and we wanted to make sure that they were diverse and as inclusive as possible. We want to first give credit to the artist that we worked with. Her name is Magdalena, and she's from Poland. She was really wonderful to work for. If you ever work with, if you ever want to reach her, she is at Ma Ferret 2 Art on Fiverr. That's how we found her. But she was able to make all this amazing artwork for us. The main part, this is the cover for our History Detectives Passport booklet. And this houses all the information about our assessments and the project pages for each different project. And we can take a look inside of this. This is one of the first pages, and the children are able to design their own STEAM history detective, and they would draw that and make up their own teamwork superpower. And here's a few pages. If you look, they're a little bit out of order because it is a printable and they're put in a specific order. So when it prints, it can be assembled as a booklet. So it's a little bit confusing. But if you look to the right, this is one of the first pages where the children will draw a blueprint for their project. Each project follows this same format. So the first day they would be drawing a blueprint of their device or glider or bridge on their own as independent work. On the second day, they would be drawing a new design where they're combining their ideas with their partner collaboratively and writing what changes you would make. This would be the formative assessment for both days. And then on the third day, if you look to the right, you can see where they talk about what they would be doing differently next time as a final assessment after they had finished the project. And to the left is the intro lesson to the idea of using primary sources, which my colleague Carla will be talking more about.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for that awesome interview. And I just want to give a shout out to Ashley. The art itself was created by the artist that we worked with, but the actual graphic design of the inside covers and stuff was all by Ashley. So she used some of her amazing talents from her undergrad skills to make that happen for us. So
thanks, Colleen.
All right, so Carla, I'm going to toss it to you to talk a little bit more about primary sources and analysis and the I See, I Think, I Wonder that everyone can see right here on the passport pages.
Sure, thanks, Colleen. We integrated primary sources in each lesson so that we could tie it into science history. And there were a few examples of primary sources for each invention or improvement. The first one that we did, Alexander Graham Bell and the telephone invention, we used images, a journal entry, and even found an interesting voice recording. For the Wright brothers and the airplane invention, there were several images. The plane flying, there was a picture of a plane crash and also a blueprint. And then for the New Deal and Triborough Bridge, there were several images of the Triborough Bridge. And then the primary sources, it's important to note that they're concrete examples to help children make sense of the inventions and improvements in history so that they can get a better picture, so to speak, of what they are learning about. For the application of the analysis tool, we, as we've mentioned, worked with the Library of Congress and provided an outline for analysis, but we had to adapt it for early childhood because there really isn't anything for early childhood available when it comes to these STEM lessons and the analysis on the Library of Congress site. And to do that, we provided prompting statements for the analysis using I see, I think, I wonder, as you saw in Ashley's presentation. And we also used integration of primary resources so that the students could use primary resources for analysis and build their product designs based off the information that they learned. And also the primary sources allowed a starting point for them to go forward with their STEM and STEAM activity.
Great, thanks so much, Carla. So we told you a little bit about why we did it. Really wanted to find a way to engage students with primary sources in early childhood, do something that isn't done too often, make it developmentally appropriate. Talked about a little bit how we did that. And certainly if you want to incorporate this into your classroom, you know, these materials are going to be available to you. The lesson plans are fully scripted out, academic lesson plans, and we do have, you know, the printables and all that kind of stuff for you. But this is only 3 different points in time, and there's so much more you could do. So what we want to do is give you a little bit of wisdom, our tips and tricks that we've learned along the way, things that we think will help you be able to do it yourself, how you can integrate primary sources into your STEM or STEAM block, if one exists for you, how you can do it too. So I'm gonna give it over to Betsy, who's gonna talk about our kind of first group of tips and tricks.
Thanks, Colleen. So the first tip that I'm going to talk about is anchoring. And teachers use anchoring to tie in the lesson to concrete things, places, or concepts. Anchoring also uses images to provide visual examples and provides labels to help students with the association and vocabulary. Hands-on learning is important for young students. We want activities that engage the students in active learning. So we give hands-on experiences that give real-world context. We want to have the ability to apply concepts to real life for our students. And movement is important too. So we want students up and moving around the classroom to maintain their attention on the activities. And we want you to remember too that there's different teaching styles. This unit of lessons includes different teaching styles. There were 6 pre-service teachers in our group creating and working on these lesson plans. So we all sort of had our own little flair. So lessons are flexible. And they're created so that educators are able to modify the lessons based on their own teaching style and the needs of their classroom and students.
Thanks, Betsy. So our last group of tips and tricks are going to be talked about by Morgan.
Hi, everyone. So like Colleen said, I'll be talking about a few more tips and tricks that we have. One of the first ones is our connection of concepts to characters. And the reason we did this is to provide our students with something that gives them a more welcoming presence to the lesson and to show them that that they can do these things as themselves. So that would go back to the superpowers that we selected for these characters, because Obviously, normal people don't have superpowers, so we wanted to give them superpowers that people can have. Instead of flying around and laser beams and stuff, we did communication, innovation, and problem solving. Communication is super important for children to know how to use, because when you have them do collaborative learning and working together with one another, they need to know how to communicate. So we found having Jaden be our communication superpower person, he could show them how to have these different or how to be able to communicate with one another. Another important part of collaboration is having the innovation aspect. And for Amelia to have innovation, it shows them how they can use their own brains to come up with different ideas to solutions to problems, which brings us to our problem solving, which is what Riley covers. Riley is a pretty little girl who goes in and tries to solve problems, and in this specific situation she's solving the problem how to build bridges. So it just shows them that people from all different types of backgrounds and things can be able to have different superpowers, and problem solving is also important for them to know, since they need to solve the different problems in each of the different activities that we give them. Another reason we chose characters is it provides them someone to report back to on the information that they learned throughout the lesson. And it also is a guide that is around their age and acts as a form of support and appears relatable, because we're obviously not around their age. So it's nice to have someone that resembles them so that they're able to relate to that. Another tip and trick is how we built our lesson plans. We used the idea of the 5 E's model for our science history project. We didn't necessarily write out the lesson plans labeling each of the different 5 E's, but we did implement them in each of our lesson plans. The 5 E's are engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. We used engage when we had the students listen to our read alouds, or we gave them information, whether playing a video or introducing them to the primary resources. Explore was when we let them go out on their own and look at the primary resources and build their own blueprints and drawings from those. We had them explain in our booklet, the passport booklet, by having them tell us why they built what they built, how they built what they built, and explain the different ways they had to change their building depending on their collaborative work. Again, that goes also into the elaborate and how they were able to explain why they built the glider the way they built it, why they built their bridge to the way they built it to hold 100 pennies, and how they made their communication device work. And evaluate is at the end when they're able to come to terms with the final product and why what happened, as well as the final checklist that we provide them to fill out at the end of all 3 lessons. We also find it effective to provide an outline of the I do, we do, and you do section, because it helps you provide a thorough and effective teaching style so that they get all the information and none of it is missed. And another important part of the 5 E's model and just building lesson plans in general, we found that collaborative work was a good way for students to build teamwork skills and to work with one another to build a single product, since they usually work on their own.
Excellent. Okay, thank you so much, Morgan. So that does, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here. Take us to the end of our kind of formal presentation, but I hope that was helpful to all of you. I know this for sure is being viewed by some of the undergrads in our class. So as you guys can see, we applied a lot of the things that we learned in the class about the gradual release of information by structuring the I do, we do, you do along with the engage or the 5E model, as I think Morgan really explained it really well. the 5 E's kind of went across the 3 lessons, and then the I do, we do, you do is in every single lesson. So the I do, we do, you do gave us the structure for each lesson, and then the 5 E's for each little block of lessons within. It's almost like 3 little mini units, an introduction, and then it's 10 lessons overall. So one thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is kind of how, it's a little bit meta, but how we did it. So if you were to be doing this type of curriculum building, you probably are going to work in a team if you're in working as a teacher with maybe your grade level team or something. So one thing that we did was, we met almost every week to kind of go through what we need to do and all that kind of stuff. But we did break up into teams. So just in the same way we have the students do collaborative learning, we did collaborative learning. So we had pairs, we had 6, so we did pairs for each of those 3s. So Carla and I worked primarily on the Alexander Graham Bell. Alyssa and Morgan primarily did the Wright brothers, and then Betsy and Ashley primarily did the New Deal Triborough Bridge project. So yeah, just a lot of the things that we do with kids is also really effective for how we can work together. So we had a great time working together. It was a very challenging project, I think. But the Library of Congress has tons of resources. If you want to build your own STEAM history detective or other type of STEAM early childhood primary source lesson, highly recommend checking out their search tools. We found that their pre-made like bundles of primary sources, I can't remember the term, but those are really helpful as well for certain major things, but you can definitely get in the weeds on their stuff, and you can reach out to the library. Librarians do respond to like messages and stuff like that. So even though they're in DC, you can still access it. And there's also a teachers network that you can join for free, even as a pre-service teacher. I'm a member of it, and you can register yourself as a pre-service teacher and collaborate with teachers all across the country who want to use primary sources. So it's awesome. There is lots of grant money out there potentially that you can maybe do your own, not lots, but you might be able to do your own project. So we hope this helps you, gives you a little bit of an idea of how you can build something that is interdisciplinary, that is child appropriate. We really think these are fun lessons. They're building gliders out of craft materials. They're building real mini bridges they've learned about, how triangles are strong shapes to support those. They make kind of a classic like ear cup and string type thing. So I feel like we didn't quite cover that as much, but if you take a look at our lesson plans, if you're interested, they are, like I said, very detailed and descriptive of exactly what you could say. But then as Betsy was talking, I think you can adapt this. So you'll see, like when Carla and I designed the primary source analysis part in the first lesson, we had it as like stations. Both of us happen to be in clinical placements where our teachers do centers. I apologize for the noise. And then some other people did it a little bit more, taking the students through, like 3 primary sources at the rug. So it's just to kind of point out that there are so many different ways that you can adapt this to what works for your classroom. We think it's possible, and if you have any questions, we would love to answer them. We know that if you're viewing this for the STEAM class, STEM class, then you'll be writing discussion posts, so I know we'll try to monitor and answer to the best of our abilities any questions you have, and please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We would love to help you learn from this, and that's really all I have. Anything else from the group? Otherwise, I'll just say thank you so much for watching and wishing you well, lots of fun lesson planning. Bye.